The goal is going to be to write down an example of a couple of these scripts right now and get them working. So the protect script. First of all, let me go and look at. I took notes on how a bunch of these things were written before, so I just want to go and look at the language I was using for the protect tile script in the first. All right, so basically the logic is RPG sim entity ally equals RPG role an ally. I'll just assume this has a context pointer. And then we're going to do give harden. So to give harden, in this case, I'm switching the name from harden to protect. So it's we're going to need the protected ID equals RPG ID from name context. The name is protected. And then we want to do ink. RPG tile ink. Context. Ally. Protected ID +1. So that's what happens when protect gets used. Or when the protect gets used, this happens. Then RPG tile script protected so this says, yeah, the language here gets a little hard to transcribe into C, and it starts taking on more and more difficult tricks to get there. So what this says is when the holder would take damage, -1 to the damage, then discard this. So this is something like if RPG, I kind of feel like I want to have like an event struct or something that's like RPG current event. I don't know. If RPG event damage context damage RPG. So the combat scripts have these things. I think this is what I want. This is the hit. So give me the hit and I'll modify the hit. If hit amount is greater than 0, hit amount minus equals 1. Discard this. Event. If the holder rests, so rest. Discard this. So it says something like that. So there's some interpretation issues though, because if this is going to run as C code, then the problem is going to be, first of all, the problem is going to be, when do these functions run? This one says when this gets used. This one says during certain events. It does different things. So we could just say if RPG event used, and now that's just another event type that you have to watch out for. And so the logic is that whenever there's an event, well, it's not quite that simple, is it? When there's an event that a tile is getting used, that's different. It only activates a particular tile. This is like a this is used. This is like when the holder, so a character holding this tile, and this is when the character holding this tile rests. So when those things happen, all of the tiles held by that character would have to be iterated to possibly trigger these types of events. This only gets triggered when a specific tile gets activated. So it's not like every tile gets past control flow every time there's an event. It's more like different events occur, and tiles related to that event, certain tiles can hook that event, and the tiles that can hook that event get scanned and activated. Something like that. Although I think the language is going to need to evolve a little bit more than that at some point. Maybe not. I'm not sure yet. There's a thing going on here that feels just a bit funny that I'm not sure. Maybe this is just right, though. Maybe this is the level of complexity I actually wanted to land at. But it feels like there's another concept lurking just outside of reach, where the this and the holder could be a data structure of some kind. But I don't see it yet. So that's what the scripts want to look like. So now we need to figure out if we want to do all of the tiles this way, right? We could be doing RPG tile script. Heart does nothing. Attack. If RPG event this used context. This would be roll an enemy. We also want to get sim entity holder equals RPG holder. Proto ID RPG this ID, something like that. Amount equals RPG tile count context holder this ID, then the enemy heart ID gets decremented by the amount, except that's not quite true. What we actually want to do is generate a hit. We space this out, so you can't directly alter an enemy number of hearts with this. You want to write RPG hit context enemy amount or something like that. Heart attack mana. Poison. I don't actually need to re-implement all the things that I made up while I was playing with the system. Protect, protected. Get back to sleep. Get back to fly and bat. Get back to captain and taunt. Protect, protected. Heart attack, protected, protect. Okay. So now the next idea here is, what if I wanted to move all of this to this, right? Well, I guess the next step is let's actually make these macros real. So I want to be able to say something like this. RPG tile script takes a name. It's going to need, we know we have the registry system already set up. RPG register. Right, so we have to make some concessions. There needs to be a symbol name. And then capital N is for the big name. The kind is going to be RPG reg data kind tile. The value is going to be just an empty string. And the pointer is going to be a function signature or a function symbol. So we need something like RPG underscore underscore symbol tile script. And then we get how do we want this? Something like RPG tile hook RPG. This is hook signature RPG symbol tile script. Boom, and then finally RPG underscore symbol underscore tile script RPG hook signature without a semicolon. RPG hook signature. Name is going to go like this. Void name RPG context. Like that. And then typedef RPG hook to make a... There we go. So there's our hook signature macro. Here's the RPG hook type. And then the tile script. The only thing I have to change is that since I don't know how to get around having a specified symbol name for each function, I have to give them their name twice. Undeclared identifier. What am I missing here? We declare the tile. That doesn't say tile script. There we go. Okay. Now, the next problem is this entire scripting language is totally not implemented yet. So, starting with the fact that all of these are kind of in La La Land here, I think combat. What do you contain? Sim entity new party index. Yeah, these are entity operators. Combat C. Tile operators. Entity operators. But I think we might want to move this into its own thing. Because the next thing that's going to happen is all this stuff from the scripting layer is going to start getting added to this list of all the operations you can do on the context. And I think that should just live somewhere else. So like this is the old stuff that's about setting up the protos and mapping them. That's this. Yeah, all of this here is proto stuff. This here is entity stuff. Dot entity dot h is going to look like this now. Well, this isn't the right name. Dot operators dot h. Operator functions. Kind of low on the coffee. I'm gonna finish off the coffee and go grab a water to replace it. 1 sec. Okay. Entity operators, character tile operators. Those are all going to go, oops, actually operators.c and live right here. So we got a layer for that kind of thing. Operators. And naming pass. This is the proto layer. Logging, print, yeah, this just needs a cleanup. Okay. Now, over here in the game scripts, we've got new function types. These are going to be tile script, operators, something like that. Function U32 RPG this ID, RPG context, function RPG sim entity, RPG holder, RPG context. Function RPG sim entity. Ah, I see the more direct factorization. We will have a way of grabbing this tile. Then when we need the ID, we'll use this tile. Arrow. Proto ID. And then there are these role functions, so like role ally, role enemy. And then there's also these. There's function void RPG discard this. RPG context. Now what we could do is we could grab this tile and say if the hit amount is greater than 0, right, if hit amount is greater than 0, then we grab this tile, and if hit amount is less than this tile counter, then we do this tile counter minus equals hit amount, and hit amount equals 0. Otherwise, we do hit amount minus equals counter, and counter equals 0. And then if if I want to do it this way, the problem is, do you see the problem is now I have to use the TileInk tile decrement API that I already wrote. I guess what I want is I want another variation of that API that works like this. TileInk context this tile. So this is tile deck hit amount. And this is RPG tile set to 0. This tile, right? But that I can't use overloaded functions, so now I gotta think what's the way I want to phrase this. Sometimes it's useful to go around just throwing in a proto ID and an amount and letting it find the tile or create it, summon it from scratch if necessary, modify it, and then clean itself up. Other times I might want to grab the tile myself there. That's why that part sucked. Now, yeah, I still need to figure out what I want to do about that question. There you find the tile. Here, if the tile doesn't exist, you first initialize it. But either way, once it exists, this is how you do the tile increment. Here you find the tile, and if it exists, this is how you do the decrement. Yeah, so the only stopper here is I need a better name. What about the init part? The init part always creates the tile, right? Yeah. So you wouldn't actually pass the tile in for that one anyways. And you don't need these because they're literally just accesses once you've got it down to a tile pointer. Yeah, so the only ones that are a little bit bundled here are those. It's going to be a naming problem. So I think I want to start abbreviating character to CHR everywhere. And then we're going to say these should have been called character tile count, character tile max, tile init, character tile inc, character tile deck, tile from character, character tile count, character tile max, character tile init, character tile inc, character tile deck, and that should create a certain amount of work for me to do. Cool. And then over here, when we do tile deck, this should be character tile increment. Hit. Okay, we're getting there. I don't have everything done yet. The tile increment and tile decrement. Look like this. Tile decrement. It's a little bigger. But that's just because it contains the possibility of checking the proto for a discard flag. That should be a character tile decrement. And then we get to those role functions again. Okay, so let's try to go implement the tile script operators. This isn't even all of them. We're still missing a bunch. But the context is going to have to contain some tile script state or registers or something like that. Sim entity this tile. And if I remember correctly, that's actually not the way it's going to work. Let's do it that way. Because we end up wanting to... Let me go read these more carefully. When did I use holder? Yeah, that's not what I want. What I want is... Well, I guess that is what I want. Whichever tile is getting used, you look at that tile's holder. So that's the right language there. That's the right language here. Okay. What am I missing? Operators. Now to roll an ally. We'll need to have these sitting aside. That'll be done like this. This will be done like this. Something like this is a good start. Role bounded on the context PRNG. Parent child count, if the child count is greater than 0 to begin with. Then we do result equals RPG sim index parent index. Tile count. Tile count. context tile count, tile count, tile count, tile init. Where is that happening? That should be character tile init. Okay, so we didn't do those parts of the scripting system yet. RPG event, this is used. RPG event, holder damage, context, RPG, combat hit out. Function B2 RPG event, holder rest. So those are the kinds of events that are supported so far. And the way that's going to have to work is we're going to have in the context see, that means the operators already know about the combat system. And so I think the events and the way information flows into the tile scripting is going to have to include definitions from subgames. Right. So these event markers go like this. Context. TS event used. Event damaged. Event rest. And then we need a hit function. Which takes target and amount. So this means we need to go sim entity this tile equals RPG or context TS this tile. RPG sim entity discard context this tile. We already have this once right here. So if the counter gets to 0, then we discard it. Pretty straightforward. Makes sense. Now to generate a hit, what's going to have to happen is this little piece of the combat system is going to have to become part of the context. But this right here is the logic for it. RPG hit means context TS hit first, hit last, hit. The hits are going to have to come from somewhere a little more careful. Increment that. The hit gets the target. It gets the amount. This are parameters. Boom, 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 boom. something like this. Okay, so then this is going to come from like a free hit list. If hit does not equal 0, we'll pop the stack. Otherwise, we'll allocate a new one. That hit. And then we need these things. So that'll point there, that'll point there. Those will zero out, so those will live on the free list. Now the context has to contain this concept of hits because I haven't figured out how to write these sub games without infecting the base layer description of the game. I need to come up with a plan for that. That's the actual missing piece. Well, one of the big missing pieces. Not, I shouldn't say the actual. But it's an important missing piece. Hit first, hit last, hit free, hit count. Well, yeah, it's not that simple, is it? Yeah, I'll leave it there. What I'm thinking is, like, enemies are definitely a part of the combat thing. This data structure is part of the combat thing, but the concept of it taking damage isn't quite restricted to combat, right? You could imagine all kinds of scenarios where you want to be able to encode the idea of taking damage without it being a combat encounter. So that part I want to hold off on for now. And maybe I actually want to eliminate combat hit. That was the way I did it the first time through, but thinking about it now, it kind of means there's yet another element in the engine when I'm trying to make everything about tiles with counters on them and stuff. Maybe I just want a damage tile, and what I want to do is to stack up the damage dealing tiles onto each character board and then resolve them. Something like that. Hey, welcome. Okay, so we can see the tiles actually are getting registered. We've got 4 tiles, and here they are. Boom, 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 boom. Rhizoma's asking, what's a proto? So the way that my system works, so we have a runtime engine with an entity system. So these are the simulation entities. And then a bunch of descriptions about like how the tiles, so everything is structured into this hierarchy where parties are made up of a set of characters, and each character has a set of tiles. And then the tiles, well, all of those things, but the tiles are, their behaviors are determined by the core rules of the game plus the tile scripts. And so the tile protos just link the name to the tile script, basically, and some like rules on how the tile stacks. Then the character protos are the lists of tiles that go into initializing a particular character, and a party proto is a description of how to initialize a particular party. So the protos are just basically the static description of how to set up, like you can imagine, when you're making an RPG, you design your goblin character type, and then you have an instance of it as like an entity. So the protos are the descriptions of the of the general class, so to speak, and the entities create instances of that class via proto. It's kind of a like proto. It's kind of cribbing from like object-oriented style thinking with like prototype based object orientation. But like the proto is a struct that represents the proto information for any kind of entity, and so any entity can use any proto to determine what kind of entity it is, and within that how that particular one is going to behave. Okay, so I've got the 4 tiles. We're moving towards the tile scripts actually being able to do something, but I think an intermediate step to get to next is, now that those are being registered, instead of having this, I'd like to get to the point where this becomes redundant, because the registered stuff will just automatically... I'm going to get rid of the old code here. Just focus on what we're doing now. I want these to be automatic. And for those to be automatic, it would be something like... Okay, so I want to be able to access all of the rec map. I want to be able to access all of the all the registered data. So I think it'll be like this: RPG reg count, RPG reg map, RPG reg data kind, and then RPG reg data, RPG reg index, RPG reg map, kind, U64 index. So that is a name-based mapping, and this is just going to be a count and an index. So this is 64 result equals 0 if kind is in the right range, and the result is the map's data count indexed by kind. Again, check the kind, but this time also check that our index is less than the map count. Then we can go like this, RPG reg data result equals data kind index return result. We can speed this up later if we want, but that more or less does it. I mean, the other way I could do this is just return the base pointer. That might be a little more what I want. So yeah, you put in a kind, you get the count and the data, and then you can iterate it yourself. That seems good. So here we're going to set up the tiles by going count equals RPG reg count. Here's the map. Here's the reg data kind tile. And then we're going to loop over that. We're going to want that base pointer to reg data equals RPG reg base. Here's the map and the kind again. So we get the base and the count. Then we can go reg data plus equals 1 all the way through. For each one of these, we are going RPG tile new context reg data name 0, 0. So now the only problem is, where are we going to get these two integers? Right, that's the part that isn't done. But that's the, I think that's the first main idea. We got to do that. This. Okay. Okay, I got a bunch of cool questions. Thanks, Razama. So, No, there's no interpreter for scripts. The script, when I say scripting here, I think of scripting not as about the difference between interpreted versus compiled. I know that's how a lot of people use the word scripting. I think that's kind of a less useful place to draw the distinction line. I think of scripting as the kind of programming that you do when you're making lots of little descriptions of behavior rather than a few large sort of algorithm data structure, like uh, I don't know what you'd call it, sort of mega structures. It's like when you're developing a big application or a game engine, um, you don't usually want to put all of that into a scripting language because it's this big, gigantic mechanism, and having a language which is designed for a really small one-off, like, oh, this is the version that does a loop over all of them and compresses it that, or not compress, but like folds it this way versus the one that spreads them out and interleaves them and then combines them that way, right? Scripting is quickly throwing together new small descriptions of behavior that you can then combine uh, into like a runtime. To me, that's what it means. But the scripts are written in C. They're just sort of C that is only viable, or it's only valid to run some of the functions and the runtime assumptions within the context of one of these script functions and not just in general. So it's like isolated from the rest of the C that way. But I don't have a full like scripting language interpreter that I'm maintaining or that I'm importing from another language or something. And yeah, it's a full rewrite. As in everything that I did from the beginning of the RPG Simulator project in December. In this case, I decided to do a full rewrite just because it was something I started in December, got through it for about 6 weeks until I hit the edge of sort of that the expanding wave of what I could accomplish slowed down and hit a wall. And I have just a sense like, especially on a first pass, it never hurts to do a full rewrite a few times early on in learning how to build something. In fact, I would do one maybe after the first few weeks, and then maybe one after one full year. Um, and not everybody agrees with doing things that way. My process is a little bit slow, but by the third or fourth time really digging in and hitting a wall and then considering why you hit that wall and going again, you get to a point where you've condensed something useful, or you've got no idea how to fix the problems you're hitting, and then you just don't know how to solve the problem. But that's why it's sort of exploratory research stuff and not uh, easy. There's a certain amount of unknown whether or not what you're trying to make happen can even settle in out of the components that the building blocks you have just might not get you there somehow. But definitely felt like lightning in the bottle for this project in the first few weeks of it. So I'm hoping to preserve that while upping the quality of the organization and planning built in from the beginning this time. Of course, a lot of the magic in the bottle is in the simulation layer, which I haven't even started touching yet. I've been sorting out all the protos and everything related to that. Okay, so funny enough, it looks like everything still works because none of the stack limiting rules actually matter yet. I mean, the default is, yeah, we don't need anything to get discarded for this to work. So the discard at 0 rule doesn't matter. And when these all go to 0, it just ends up doing the right thing for maxes and counts anyways. So we're not seeing any problems yet from the fact that these didn't get passed along. But still, I want to figure out what the plan is for passing them along. I think the best thing we could do, the best option I can think of, is that these need to be figured out by doing something like game scripts. See, so we only get one function here. I think what we could do is we could say RPG TS header, and then tile header maybe, and then we'll do RPG. Let's see. Well, this one doesn't even need a header. It's 0, 0. This one doesn't need a header. It doesn't have anything in it that needs a header yet. This one needs a header. Protect has tile stack tile fixed max context 1, and this one RPG tile discard at 0 context. Like that, maybe? It's a good start, at least. So we'll write up how those headers work. Where is scripting? Not scripting. Is it context? That's like operators, right? Function beater to RPG tile header context RPG. We just go RPG header. I don't know. Tile header fixed max, tile header discard 0. You should end up with so many of these functions all the time. Tile script operators. Tile header fixed max, tile header discard 0. This would be context TS tile header. Okay. Okay, and then setting it up that way means that to use it, what you have to do is you go ts tile header is 1, context ts. So we'll turn that on there. Well, let's just do this in chunks. Tile header. Awesome, Rizoma. Have a good evening. Have a good night. Thanks for stopping by. Tile header max equals 0. Tile header discard at 0 equals 0. And when we're done, that and header discard at 0 goes there and there. And then the registry contains this pointer, which is actually an RPG hook. Which we now call. And the hook takes the context, possibly modifying it. When everything is done, we set the header flag back to 0. Okay. Now, how do we know it actually got through if we aren't able to see the difference when it works or doesn't work? Well, the way I can think to do that is I'm going to have to look at it in the debugger. That seems the best option I have. Just look at one of these. Are we not going to let me see that? Okay. That's a strange way to step into it, but okay. Tile header. Tile fixed max becomes 1. And we're out. And now, yeah, there's something off. It's like one of the file's line numbers are off. Counter max. Name protect. Why is the counter max 0 though? Shouldn't that be a 1? I got those flipped, huh? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that looks right. So we're getting somewhere. Okay. So that's another step towards the tile scripting. The next thing, I guess, is that these hooks aren't actually getting saved into the tile proto in any way. And we actually do want them to do that. So we're going to extend the tile protos one more time. Yeah, that's not where we want it. There it is. And right there. Proto tile new hook. Tile name. Proto tile hook equals hook. Ugh. RPG hook. Tile max. Okay, so tiles now have access to their hooks. Whew. I know I'm not quite at 2 hours yet, but I am feeling like I'm running out of a certain kind of mental steam for today. What did I get done? We got the new tile scripting stuff up and running. We wrote all those functions for the tile scripting thing. Yeah, so... And that I also got the whole tile state thing and the sim entity up and running. That's not everything we need to see the tile effects yet. But the next few steps to getting to tile effects is it's gonna take going into the combat loop and saying, okay, right now we're just gathering hits. What we want to turn that into is players make their moves, or characters make their moves. And so for each character, we're going to go, okay, look and see with those operators that we have, B32 RPG character tile has so we need a couple of proto IDs here. Attack we already have, and then there's protect ID equals RPG ID from name. This is obviously not the way we would normally want the brain scripting to work, with the protect ID just getting dropped around, but here we go. So protect ID if RPG character tile has a character protect ID, well, we'll do it like this: if count is greater than 0. And the reason we'll do it that way is so the counter can be used for cooldown on something like protect. RPG use of this character use protect ID, otherwise it'll use attack ID. Those can go out. So now we got to look at the proto for the tile. That actually has to be a tile for it to be used that way. So if you've got the tile that you need and you've got the tile proto that you need, Then the last step is we're going to say context. We got to set up the context. Event used equals 1. Set that back to 0. Yes. This tile is the one called tile. TS holder equals you don't need to do that one. Holder always means the one holding the tile. So it might as well be tile parent, right? At least that's how it looks right now. If we wanted to have a one called like tile user or something, the user might need to be stored because the one using the tile might not be the one holding it. If we want to add in rules like you can, use mirror abilities or something, mimic abilities, the ability to use in a power from your enemy's set of tiles or something. That's unusual. What was I in the middle of doing? Tile holder use. Yeah. Event used. This tile ally party is going to be character parent. Enemy party. I'm actually going to have to do these a different way. Let's go over to combat. This is only known right here. So maybe that's the way I have to do it. We'll see. Okay. Then we can go into proto tile hook context, and that should do it. That should do it. There we go. It looks like the simulation still works as it should, and we can see that the protection is getting placed. Now, we don't have the protected status actually doing anything yet, but our wizard is choosing to protect. So they did, yeah, you can see here our party did 3 damage instead of 4. They definitely did 3 damage. And if they had done a 4th damage, it would have killed someone. So only 3 damage happened, right? There's no way to sort things out here so that this is 4 damage. You can't always tell that, because if one of the characters gets killed, it's possible that a bunch of hits all went to them. More than enough can be used to kill. But here, no one got killed, so we can count 3 exact damage, and this guy protected this guy, which doesn't do anything, but it worked. And that's the cool part. So, in a very basic way at least, that is tile scripting up and running. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and mark it as done on the first to-do list, the early to-do list. But now I'm going to build up a list of things to work on. So we want to be able to expand context state and operators with modular subgames like combat. We want to be able to we need some kind of scalable event describing / indexing data type for events like these and this thing. Looking at what we did with operators here. Yeah, we need to do a pass in the entity system for some of this, like the freeing thing, roll ally, roll enemy, header fixed max, header holder damaged, holder resting. I mean, this seems like a good start. Let's look at those scripts again. Game scripts. Well, we want some kind of auto hooking, filtering, handler indexing, something or other. Of tile entities. And then, of course, there's just like, we got to build out all of the events. So more of the events from first pass need to be implemented, including the one here for damage. I'll keep thinking about that, but I think I'm going to wrap up here for today. It's 6 here, so it's a good time for me to get done with work. I think tomorrow I'll probably press ahead with writing the BrainScript system, because that's the last of the major systems that are missing. And once we have brain scripting, then we can start to ratchet up the power of everything else. Like the tile scripting, we can get into the entity system better, and so on and so on. So that's the plan for tomorrow, is to write the brain scripting system. And then maybe I'll be able to spend Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So that's 4 days just cleaning up the details over and over again and ratcheting up the capacity of this thing again. Okay? So, with that, thanks for coming and hanging out and chatting if you did. I will see you all around. Bye.